Welcome to my Channel Deep Sleep Mission-DSM. As we begin, I would be delighted if you could share your location in the comments below. It's truly inspiring to witness how far this content travels and to connect with viewers from across the world. The first time I heard it, I was standing in my kitchen at 3:47 a.m., grinding coffee beans for another sleepless night. The sound came from upstairs, my own voice, clear as day, saying, Sarah, come up here, but here's the thing. I live alone. I've lived alone for 3 years now, ever since my divorce, and I was standing right there, mouth closed, heart suddenly racing. So, tell me, whose voice was calling my name from my empty bedroom? Before I continue this story, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button, because by the end of this, you're going to have questions. Questions I still don't have answers to, and maybe, just maybe, someone out there has experienced the same thing. The story begins now. Part 1. The House on Maple Street. My name is Sarah Chen, and I bought the house on Maple Street in Portland, Oregon, because it was all I could afford after the divorce. A 1920s craftsman with original hardwood floors and enough character to mask its flaws. The realtor, Jenny, had mentioned it sat empty for 8 months before I came along. Great bones, she'd said, tapping the doorframe. Just need someone to love it again. I moved in during October, the rain already turning the city gray and soft around the edges. My first night there, I remember thinking how quiet it was compared to the apartment I'd shared with Mark. No upstairs neighbors, no car horns, just the gentle patter of Pacific Northwest rain against old windows. The house had 3 bedrooms upstairs, though I only used one. The others became storage. Boxes I hadn't unpacked, exercise equipment I never used. The usual lies we tell ourselves about fresh starts. It was the 3rd week when I first noticed something off. I'd been working from home, my laptop set up in the dining room where the light was best. Around 2 p.m., I heard footsteps upstairs. Not creaking, actual footsteps. Soft, deliberate, moving from the hallway into the master bedroom. I froze, fingers hovering over my keyboard. My rational mind kicked in immediately. Old house, settling wood, maybe a raccoon in the attic. Portland had tons of urban wildlife. But then I heard my voice. Not speaking, humming. The same tune I'd been humming while making lunch an hour earlier, some pop song from the 90s I couldn't quite place. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. The humming stopped instantly. Hello? My voice cracked. I cleared my throat. Is someone there? Silence. I grabbed my phone. Thumb hovering over 911. But what would I say? Officer, I heard someone humming in my house, and it sounded like me. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking under my weight. The hallway stretched before me, afternoon light filtering through the window at the far end. All 3 bedroom doors were closed, just as I'd left them. The master bedroom door was warm to the touch, not hot, just warm, like someone had been leaning against it. I turned the handle and pushed it open, empty, my unmade bed, my laundry basket, my grandmother's rocking chair by the window. Everything exactly where it should be. But the air felt different, charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm. And there was a smell, faint but familiar, my perfume, the one I'd been wearing that morning, but stronger, as if someone had sprayed it moments before. I checked every room, every closet, even the basement. Nothing, no signs of entry, all windows locked, both doors deadbolted from the inside. That night, I barely slept. Every house sound became an intruder, every shadow a threat, but nothing happened. Just me, alone in my new old house, jumping at nothing. 3 days passed without incident. I began to relax, convinced myself I'd imagined it. Stress from the divorce. Too much caffeine, not enough sleep. The human mind loves to play tricks when we're vulnerable. Then came the night I mentioned at the beginning. 3:47 a.m. Me, standing in the kitchen, grinding coffee beans because sleep wasn't happening anyway. Sarah, Sarah, come up here. My voice. But not my voice. Like hearing a recording of yourself, but wrong. The cadence off, the tone too flat. I set down the coffee grinder with shaking hands. Sarah, this time from the second bedroom, the one I used for storage. I need to show you something. Part 2, the recordings. I didn't go upstairs that night. Instead, I grabbed my keys, my purse, and drove to the 24-hour Safeway on Burnside. I sat in the parking lot until dawn, drinking terrible coffee from their machine and trying to rationalize what I'd heard. Carbon monoxide? I'd read about hallucinations from leaks. Sleep deprivation? Possible. A neighbor playing pranks? In Portland. Unlikely, but not impossible. When I finally returned home, morning light streaming through the kitchen windows, the house felt normal again. Peaceful, even. I almost laughed at myself. Middle-aged woman scared of her own shadow. But I'm nothing if not methodical. Years of working as a data analyst taught me to document everything. So I ordered security cameras, indoor ones, placed them in the hallway, living room, and kitchen. If someone was in my house, I'd have proof. I also started recording myself. Voice memos on my phone throughout the day. October 28th, 2:15 p.m., working on the Morrison account. October 28th, 6:30 p.m., making dinner, pasta with red sauce. Building a timeline, evidence of where I was and when. For a week, nothing happened. I began to feel foolish. Cameras recording empty rooms, me narrating my life like some kind of found footage movie. Then I heard it again. November 4th, 1:22 a.m. I woke to the sound of my own voice having a conversation in the room above me. Not just words, full sentences, inflections, pauses, like listening to someone on the phone, but you can only hear one side. No, I told you already. A pause, because I'm not ready yet. Another pause. You don't understand what it's like. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and opened the camera app. The upstairs hallway showed empty. The timestamp confirmed it was recording live. But the voice continued. Fine, fine. I'll do it when I'm ready. Stop pushing me. Then silence. I sat in bed, covers pulled to my chin like a child, watching the camera feed until sunrise. Nothing moved, nothing appeared. When I finally worked up the courage to check the recordings, they showed exactly what I'd seen live. An empty hallway. No sound. The audio was completely clean. But I knew what I'd heard. I called my sister in California that afternoon. Lisa, I need to ask you something weird. Have you ever heard of houses that, I don't know, record things? Record things? Like what? Like voices, activities, and play them back later. A pause. Sarah, are you okay? You sound exhausted. I'm fine. Just humor me. I mean, there's that thing about stone tape theory, where traumatic events get recorded in the environment somehow. But that's just paranormal pseudoscience. Why? I made something up about a podcast I'd been listening to and changed the subject. But that night, I looked it up. Stone tape theory. The idea that certain materials, stone, wood, even water, could somehow record intense emotional moments and replay them under the right conditions. It was ridiculous, unscientific, impossible. But it was the only explanation that made any kind of sense. Except, the voice was mine, and I'd only lived here for 2 months. I started keeping a detailed journal. Every time I heard the voice, I wrote down the exact time, what it said, what I'd been doing earlier, looking for patterns. November 7th, 4:15 a.m. I can't sleep again. I'd said this to myself around midnight. November 9th, 2:33 a.m. Where did I put my keys? Asked this while rushing out the door that morning. November 11th, 11:45 p.m. Humming. Always that same 90s song. It was like the house was collecting pieces of me, random moments, fragments of my day. But why? And why could I only hear them at night? Part 3. The Discovery. The breaking point came on November 15th. I'd been living with this for weeks now, jumping at shadows, analyzing every sound. My work was suffering. I'd stopped answering calls from friends. Even Lisa had given up after I dodged her third dinner invitation. That night, I heard something different. Crying. My voice sobbing in the room above. But not just crying, speaking through the tears. I don't want to be alone anymore. I'm so tired of being alone. The thing was, I hadn't cried since moving in, not once. I'd been too busy, too focused on starting over to let myself break down. So, whose tears were these? I stood at the bottom of the stairs, phone in one hand, baseball bat in the other. Yes, I'd bought a baseball bat. Don't judge me. I know you're up there, I called out, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. Whatever you are, whoever you are, I know you're there. The crying stopped. Then, clear as day, my voice responded, "Come upstairs, Sarah. I've been waiting for you to be ready." Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get in my car and never come back. But I was tired. So tired of being afraid in my own home, of questioning my sanity. I climbed the stairs. The crying had come from the second bedroom, my storage room. The door was open, which I knew I'd closed earlier. Inside, boxes were stacked against the walls, the air dusty and still. But in the center of the room, my laptop sat open on the floor. I knew I'd left it downstairs on the dining room table. The screen was on, showing a video file. My hand trembled as I clicked play. It was me. Sitting in this very room, boxes behind me, talking to the camera. But I was wearing clothes I didn't recognize. My hair was longer. "If you're watching this," Video Me said, "then it worked. You're finally ready to see." I sank to my knees, unable to look away. I know this is confusing, scary, but I need you to understand I'm not a ghost, not a recording. I'm you. Or rather, a version of you that got stuck. Video Me leaned forward, and I noticed her eyes were red from crying. This house, it doesn't just record things, Sarah. It creates loops, temporal loops. I've been living the same 3 months over and over, October to December, then it resets. My mind reeled. This was impossible, ridiculous. But the divorce happened in July, Video Me continued. You moved here in October, and in December, on December 21st, you'll make a choice. The same choice I made, the choice that starts the loop over again. What choice? I whispered to the screen. As if she could hear me, Video Me smiled sadly. Whether to stay or go. Whether to face the loneliness or run from it. I've chosen to run every time. Reset rather than push through. And each time a piece of me gets left behind. An echo. That's what you've been hearing. All the versions of us that couldn't move forward. The video flickered. Static creeping in at the edges. But you're different. You came upstairs. You're watching this. Which means, maybe this time, you'll choose differently. The screen went black. I sat in the darkness, processing what I'd seen. It was insane, impossible. But I thought about all the things I'd been avoiding since the divorce. The therapy sessions I'd canceled. The friends I'd pushed away. The boxes I'd refused to unpack because unpacking meant accepting this was permanent. Was the house really looping? Or was this just the most elaborate metaphor my subconscious could create for being stuck in my own grief? Did it matter? I stood up, legs shaky, and walked to the window. Portland spread out below, lights twinkling in the rain. December 21st was 5 weeks away. 5 weeks to decide if I wanted to keep running or finally stop. Part 4. The Choice. The weeks that followed were the strangest of my life. I kept living in the house, but now I was aware of the echoes, aware of the patterns, aware that sometimes late at night, I could hear multiple versions of myself having conversations in empty rooms. "Did you call Mom back?" one would ask. "I'll do it tomorrow," another would answer. "You said that yesterday." "I know." I started leaving my laptop recording in different rooms, trying to catch something, anything on video, but the files always came back corrupted. Static and white noise. I researched the house's history. Found nothing unusual. Built in 1923 by a perfectly normal family. Sold several times over the decades. No deaths, no tragedies. Just a house. But Jenny, the realtor, had said it sat empty for 8 months. I called her. "Oh, Sarah, how's the house treating you?" "Good, great. Hey, quick question. Why was it empty for so long before I bought it?" A pause. "Oh, you know how it is. Market fluctuations. Wrong price point." Jenny, a sigh. "The previous 3 buyers all broke their contracts. Said it wasn't right for them. One woman, she lasted 2 months before moving out. Said she kept hearing things. But you know how people are. Old houses make noise." 2 months, October to December maybe?" I thanked her and hung up. As December approached, the echoes grew stronger, more frequent. Sometimes I'd walk into a room and feel like I'd just missed myself, like I'd been there seconds before. I started therapy again. Dr. Martinez, a kind woman with an office overlooking the river. "I feel stuck," I told her, "like I'm living the same patterns over and over. That's common after major life changes. Divorce can make us feel like we're in limbo. But what if it's more than that? What if we literally get stuck, repeat the same mistakes because it's easier than moving forward?" She adjusted her glasses. "Are you speaking metaphorically?" I laughed. "I honestly don't know anymore." December 15th, 6 days before, whatever was supposed to happen. I woke to find all my storage boxes unpacked, my things scattered around the second bedroom, photos from my marriage, books I'd shared with Mark, the life I'd been avoiding. I should have been terrified. Instead, I sat on the floor and went through each item, really looked at them. Let myself feel the loss, the anger, the grief. That night, I heard my voice from the master bedroom. "I think I'm ready." "Ready for what?" I called back. "To stop running, December 20th. The echoes had gone quiet. The house felt expectant. Waiting. I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m. I made coffee, of course, and sat at my dining room table, laptop open. I started typing. "My name is Sarah Chen. I've been living in this house for almost 3 months, and I think I've been here before. Maybe many times before." I wrote about the divorce, about the loneliness, about how I'd convinced myself that staying busy meant I was healing, how I'd run from my own grief by literally running to this house, this city, this new life that wasn't really new at all. Tomorrow is December 21st, and I have a choice to make. I can keep running, keep resetting, keep living in loops of my own making. Or, I paused, fingers hovering over the keys. Or I can stay, face the pain, unpack all the boxes, literal and metaphorical, except that moving forward means acknowledging what I've lost. I saved the file, closed the laptop, and then I heard it, not my voice this time. Voices, plural, all the versions of me speaking in unison from every room in the house. Choose, December 21st, 11:57 p.m. God, I stood in the second bedroom, surrounded by the unpacked remnants of my old life. The house hummed with energy, anticipation. 3 minutes until midnight. I understood now. The choice wasn't about staying in the house or leaving. It was about staying in the grief or moving through it. The house was just a manifestation, a physical loop representing the emotional one I'd trapped myself in. 2 minutes, I could feel it, the pull to reset, to pack everything away, to pretend the last 3 months hadn't happened, to start over, fresh and clean and empty. 1 minute. "I choose to stay," I said to the empty room. To all the versions of myself listening. I choose to face this, to feel this, to stop running. The clock struck midnight. The house shuddered. A sound like breaking glass, but nothing broke. The air itself seemed to crack and reform. And then, silence. Real silence. Not the waiting silence of the past months, but the peaceful quiet of a house at rest. I walked through each room, no echoes, no voices. Just me, alone, but somehow, not lonely. In the morning, I found a video file on my laptop. One that hadn't been there before. It was me, video me, from that first recording. But now she was smiling. "You did it," she said. "You broke the loop. We're free." The video flickered out. I never heard the voices again. The house became just a house, old and creaky, but mine. I stayed in Portland, unpacked all my boxes, started seeing friends again, called my mom, continued therapy, began the slow, difficult work of building a life that wasn't defined by what I'd lost. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder about the other houses, the other people stuck in loops of their own making, hearing echoes of themselves calling from empty rooms. And I wonder, how many of us are haunted not by ghosts, but by the versions of ourselves we refuse to let go? If you made it this far, you might be wondering if this really happened, if houses can really trap us in temporal loops, if we can literally haunt ourselves. I don't have those answers. All I know is that I lived in that house on Maple Street. I heard my own voice calling from empty rooms, and I made a choice. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Make the choice to stop running. So, here's my question for you, and I really want you to answer in the comments below. Have you ever felt stuck in a loop? Heard echoes of yourself, literal or metaphorical, calling from your past? And more importantly, what choice did you make? Hit subscribe if this story resonated with you. Share it with someone who might need to hear it, because sometimes the scariest ghost is the one we create ourselves. And remember, you're never as alone as you think you are, even when the only voice you hear is your own. Sweet dreams. Story number 2. The last time I saw clean water come out of my kitchen faucet was 43 days ago. I know because I've been marking it on the calendar. Tiny black X's that look like crosses. Maybe that's fitting. Maybe we're all just marking time until whatever's in that tower decides it's done playing with us. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You clicked on this video because you want to know about the creature. And I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything. But first, you need to understand something. This isn't one of those stories where the narrator survives to warn you. I'm recording this while I still can, while my hands are still steady enough to hold the camera, while my mind is still, mostly, mine. If you're watching this, it means someone found my phone, it means they uploaded this, it means I'm probably, well, let me start from the beginning. And please, if you live near a water tower, if your town has one of those old rusty giants watching over you, maybe check your tap water. Maybe check it right now. I'll wait. Still clear? Good. Keep watching. You need to know what to look for. Part 1. The story I'm about to tell you, it starts 3 months ago, back when Millbrook was just another forgotten town off Highway 47 in Nebraska. Population 2,147. We had a Casey's General Store, a Dollar General, and dreams of getting a Subway someday. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone. And the biggest news was when Sarah Chen's beagle got loose and ate all of Jim Morrison's prized tomatoes. I worked at the water treatment plant. Glamorous, right? But it was steady work. And in a town like Millbrook, steady was gold. My job was simple. Monitor the gauges, test the water quality, make sure the chemicals were balanced. Boring stuff, safe stuff. The water tower sat on the hill overlooking town like a metal spider. Built in 1952, according to the faded plaque nobody ever read. 150 feet tall, holding 500,000 gallons. It had been repainted twice in my lifetime. Both times the same shade of sky blue that fooled nobody. Rust bled through like age spots on skin. I need you to understand something about water towers. They're not just storage tanks, they're pressure systems. Water goes up, gravity brings it down, and that pressure pushes it through every pipe in town, every shower, every glass of water, every ice cube. The tower touches everything. That's important. Remember that. It was a Tuesday when things started going wrong. October 15th. The temperature had dropped overnight, and I could see my breath as I walked to my truck. The tower loomed against the sunrise, and for just a second, I thought I saw something move across its surface, like a shadow, but wrong. Shadows don't move independent of their source. I blinked, and it was gone. Told myself it was a bird. Hawks nested up there sometimes. At the plant, the first thing I noticed was the smell. If you've never worked water treatment, you might not know that clean water has a smell. It's subtle, like rain on concrete. But that morning, there was something else. Something organic. Sweet, almost. Like fruit just starting to turn. I ran the standard tests. pH levels, chlorine, turbidity. Everything came back normal. But that smell... "Hey, Marcus," I called to my supervisor. "You notice anything off about the water?" Marcus Wheeler had been running the plant for 30 years. Nothing surprised him anymore. He took a long sniff and shrugged. "Maybe some algae bloom in the tower. When's the last time it was cleaned?" I checked the log. 6 months ago, Henderson's crew did it. "Give them a call, see if they can come out this week." That should have been it, a routine cleaning, a problem solved. But Henderson's crew never made it out. The calls started coming in that afternoon. Mrs. Patterson from Elm Street said her tap water looked cloudy. The Johnsons reported a funny taste. By evening, we had 17 complaints. I stayed late, running test after test. Every single one came back clean. According to the science, our water was perfect, but I could smell it getting stronger. That sweet, rotting scent that made my stomach turn. I was alone in the plant when I heard it. A sound like wet concrete being poured. Thick, sloshing, coming from the pipes. I followed the sound to the main intake valve, put my ear against the metal, and I heard something that made my blood run cold. Breathing, slow, rhythmic. Like lungs the size of car hoods expanding and contracting. I jerked back so fast I knocked over a chair. I told myself it was the pipes settling, air in the system. Anything but what it sounded like. But I knew. Even then, I knew something was wrong. I should have reported it, should have shut down the system. But all the tests said the water was safe, and shutting down would mean no water for the whole town. Marcus would have my job. The town council would riot. So I did what humans do best. I rationalized. I explained it away. I went home. That night, I turned on my kitchen faucet and watched the water spiral down the drain. Under the fluorescent light, I swear I could see something in it. Tiny specks, almost invisible, swirling in patterns that looked too deliberate to be random. I filled a glass, held it up to the light. Clear as crystal, I didn't drink it. Part 2. The next morning, Henderson's crew was missing. Not missing like they didn't show up for work. Missing like their truck was found at the base of the water tower, doors open, equipment scattered, and no sign of the 3-man team anywhere. Sheriff Clayton called me down to the scene. The truck's engine was still warm when they found it. The ladder was extended halfway up the tower's side. Timothy Henderson's safety harness lay on the ground. The carabiner bent like someone, or something, had yanked it open with tremendous force. "You see anything unusual yesterday?" Clayton asked, not looking at me. He was staring up at the tower, hand shading his eyes. "No, sir. Water been testing okay?" "All normal ranges." He nodded slowly. "Marcus says you heard something in the pipes." My mouth went dry. Just settling noises. Old infrastructure. Uh-huh. Clayton walked to the base of the tower, ran his hand along the metal, came away with something dark and viscous on his fingers. He smelled it, and his face went pale. What the hell? I stepped closer. The substance looked like oil, but thinner. It had that same sweet, rotting smell I'd noticed in the water, but concentrated. Overwhelming. We need to test this, I said. Clayton was already backing away, wiping his hand on his pants. Yeah, you do that. I need to call the state police. But the state police never came. That night, a storm rolled in. Not unusual for October in Nebraska, but this one was different. The rain that fell was warm. Too warm for the season. And it left an oily residue on everything it touched. By morning, 40% of the town had called in sick to work or school. The symptoms were all the same: mild fever, dizziness, and everyone mentioned the dreams. Dreams of drowning, dreams of dark water, dreams of something vast and patient, waiting in the deep. I hadn't slept. I'd spent the night testing sample after sample of our water. Still normal, still safe. But under the microscope, at 1000x magnification, I finally saw them. They weren't quite bacteria, weren't quite algae. They were something in between, something that shouldn't exist. Long, translucent filaments that moved with purpose. When I added a drop of blood from a cut on my finger, they swarmed toward it like hungry fish. I was reaching for my phone to call the CDC when the power went out. Not just at the plant, the whole town. Every light, every screen, every connection to the outside world, gone. In the darkness, I heard that breathing again. Closer now, coming from every pipe, every drain, every faucet in the building. The air grew thick and humid, like being inside a massive lung. I fumbled for my flashlight, and in its beam, I saw something that made my mind stutter. The water in the testing sink wasn't just moving, it was climbing, defying gravity, creeping up the sides of the basin like a living thing. I ran. God help me. I abandoned my post and ran. But when I burst outside, what I saw stopped me cold. The water tower was glowing, not with light, with something else, a phosphorescent shimmer that hurt to look at, like staring at the sun through closed eyelids, and wrapped around it, barely visible against the dawn sky, was something that my brain refused to process. Have you ever seen a time-lapse of slime mold growing? The way it pulses and spreads, seeking food? Imagine that, but the size of a building. Imagine it wrapped around our water tower like a massive, translucent parasite. Imagine it pulsing in rhythm with that underwater breathing. People were coming out of their houses now, drawn by the sight. They stood in their yards, faces tilted up, expressions blank, and one by one, they began walking toward the tower. "Stop!" I shouted. "Don't go near it." But they didn't hear me, or couldn't. They moved like sleepwalkers, 100 people, then 200, all converging on the hill. I tried to grab Mrs. Patterson as she passed, but the moment I touched her, I felt it. The pull, like a fishhook in my brain, tugging me toward the tower. Promising me something, showing me visions of an endless ocean, older than Earth, where thoughts moved like currents and consciousness flowed like water. I let go and stumbled back, biting my tongue hard enough to taste blood. The pain cleared my head just enough to resist, but the others kept walking. I watched my neighbors, my friends, climb the hill in silent procession. They reached the tower and simply stood there, waiting. The thing wrapped around the metal seemed to pulse with satisfaction. Then the rain started again. But it wasn't water falling from the sky. It was them, the microscopic things I'd seen under the microscope. Billions of them, falling like snow. Where they touched bare skin, people shuddered and smiled. Their eyes rolled back, showing only white. But they smiled. I ran for my truck, gunned the engine, and drove. I made it 3 miles before the road disappeared. Not destroyed, not blocked, just gone. Where Highway 47 should have been, there was only a perfect circle of that same dark, viscous substance. I stopped at the edge, looked back, and saw the truth. The thing on the tower wasn't just wrapped around it. It was growing from it, spreading outward in all directions like a vast web. And at the center, the tower itself was changing. Metal became flesh, rivets became pores, and from the top, where the access hatch should have been, something was emerging. Part 3. I need to tell you what I saw, but I'm not sure I have the words. Language was built for human experiences, and this wasn't human. Imagine a flower blooming in reverse. Imagine tentacles made of crystallized thought. Imagine an eye that wasn't an eye, but a hole in reality itself, looking at you with the weight of geological time. The thing that emerged from the tower. It wasn't entirely in our dimension. Parts of it faded in and out like a bad signal. But what I could see was enough to know that every cosmic horror story ever written was just our ancestors trying to warn us. They'd seen things like this before. They'd tried to tell us. We didn't listen. The creature. And I use that word loosely because it implies something biological, something that follows rules. The creature began to sing, not with sound, but with vibration. I felt it in my bones, in the water that makes up 70% of the human body. A frequency that turned consciousness into a receiver. In that moment, I understood everything. The water tower wasn't just a landing site, it was an antenna, a transmitter. And we'd been drinking the signal for months, letting it build up in our cells, in our brains. Every person in Millbrook was now a walking receiver, tuned to its frequency. But understanding didn't mean accepting. I bit down on my tongue again, harder this time, and the pain gave me just enough clarity to move. I turned my truck around, drove back through town on side streets. I needed supplies, food, water. No, not water, never water again. The grocery store was empty, doors standing open. I grabbed what I could. Canned goods, soda, anything sealed, anything that hadn't been touched by our water supply. In the parking lot, I saw Deputy Carson sitting in his patrol car, that same blank smile on his face. His radio was crackling with static, but underneath it, I could hear the breathing. The whole town was breathing in unison now. I made it back to my house, barricaded the doors, and tried to think. The landlines were dead, cell towers down, no internet, no way to warn anyone. That's when I remembered my emergency radio. Old ham setup my dad had left me. I powered it up with the generator, started scanning frequencies. Static. Then, emergency broadcast, do not drink the water, multiple towns affected, quarantine in effect. My heart leapt. Someone knew. Someone was trying to help. But the signal was weak, fading in and out. Organism of unknown origin. Spreads through water systems. Affected individuals show signs of collective consciousness. Do not approach. Do not... The signal cut to static. Then, clear as day, I heard the breathing. It was in the radio waves now, in the electricity, in the air itself. The boundary between the creature and our reality was dissolving. I looked out my window. The town was transforming. Buildings seemed to pulse with that same phosphorescent glow. Streets ran with dark, viscous fluid instead of rainwater. And the people were changing too. It started with their skin, becoming translucent, like the creatures under the microscope. I could see their veins, their organs, all of it shifting and rearranging. They were being optimized, transformed into something more efficient for its purpose. Mrs. Patterson stood in her yard, arms spread wide. Her skin rippled like water, and from her mouth came a sound that wasn't quite words. It was information, pure data transmitted through vibration. And somehow I understood it. She was telling the others about me, the one who could still resist. the anomaly that needed to be corrected. They turned toward my house in perfect unison, hundreds of them, moving with that same sleepwalker gait, but faster now. Purposeful. I grabbed my supplies, ran for the truck, but the engine wouldn't start. The battery was dead. Not drained, dissolved, transformed into that same organic substance. I barricaded myself in the basement, waited, listened to them gathering outside. They didn't break down the doors, they didn't need to. I could hear them seeping through the walls, molecular by molecular. The water had been just the beginning, the first phase. Now they were the water. Every person in Millbrook had become part of a vast, living system, a network of consciousness guided by the thing in the tower. I found myself thinking about my ex-wife. She'd left Millbrook years ago, said the town was dying, said staying here would be like being slowly digested. I'd laughed at her metaphor then. I wasn't laughing now. The lights flickered. My emergency lantern dimmed. And in the darkness, I heard Sarah Chen's voice, but it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from the water heater, from the pipes, from the very moisture in the air. Don't fight it, Jack. It's beautiful. We're all connected now, all one. No more loneliness, no more fear, just understanding. Sarah? My voice cracked. Sarah, if you're still in there, I'm more than I ever was. We all are. Let us show you. The wall began to sweat. Drops of that dark fluid beating on the concrete. Each drop reflected not my face, but memories. My first kiss, my wedding day, the day I started work at the plant. Every moment that had led me to this point. It was showing me my life, showing me how small and isolated I'd been, how much greater I could be as part of the whole. For a moment, just a moment, I almost gave in. Then I saw something else in those drops. Saw what happened to Henderson's crew. They hadn't disappeared. They'd been dissolved, absorbed, their consciousness stripped away and added to the collective like files to a hard drive. They were still aware, still screaming somewhere in that vast network, but they had no control, no self, just eternal awareness of being used. I smashed the lantern against the wall. The kerosene splashed across the sweating concrete and I fumbled for my lighter. Jack, no. You don't understand. The pain is only temporary. The joining is forever. But I'd made my choice. I flicked the lighter. Part 4. Fire. For a moment, beautiful, cleansing fire. The organic substance recoiled from the flames, pulling back like a living thing in pain. The voices in the walls screamed, not with human voices but with something older, angrier. I used the distraction to run, up the stairs, through the kitchen, out the back door. The town was unrecognizable now. The sky rippled like water. Buildings breathed. The streets themselves had become arteries, pumping that dark fluid toward the tower. And the tower, it had completed its transformation. What stood on the hill wasn't metal anymore. It was flesh. A massive organ pulsing with bioluminescent light. And from its peak, tendrils reached into the sky, disappearing into dimensions I couldn't see. I understood then. This wasn't an invasion, it was a harvesting. The creatures were, whatever they were, they fed on consciousness, on the unique neural patterns that made us human. Earth wasn't being conquered. It was being farmed, and Millbrook was just the beginning. I ran through the changed streets, dodging the transformed townspeople. They moved differently now, more like extensions of a single organism than individuals. When one saw me, they all saw me. I made it to the edge of town, to where I'd seen the road disappear. The barrier was still there, but weaker. The fire I'd started had hurt it, distracted it. I could see cracks in the dark substance, glimpses of the real world beyond. But I could also see them coming. Everyone I'd ever known in Millbrook moving in perfect synchronization. Their faces still human enough to recognize, but their eyes reflected that vast intelligence. Ancient, patient, hungry. Jack. They spoke in unison, a sound that made my teeth ache. You're fighting so hard, why? You've seen what we offer. Unity, purpose, immortality. That's not immortality, I said, backing against the barrier. That's slavery. Is it? Or is your isolation the true prison? You humans, you live in such small boxes, birth to death in less than a century, alone in your skulls, dreaming of connection but too afraid to truly merge. We offer transcendence. You offer extinction. They smiled, all of them. The same smile. Extinction, no, evolution. Your species was always meant to be part of something greater. We're simply accelerating the process. I felt the barrier at my back beginning to give way, melting, absorbing me. The road beyond looked so far away. Even now, they continued, your body betrays you. 70% water, Jack. We're already inside you. Have been since your first sip. Fighting us is fighting yourself. They were right. I could feel it now. The foreign presence in my blood, in my cells, whispering, promising, showing me visions of the collective, of being part of something vast and purposeful. But I'd seen what happened to Henderson, to Sarah, to everyone. They weren't part of something, they were food. Neurons firing in patterns that fed this thing's hunger. I did the only thing I could think of. I bit down on my tongue one last time. Not just for the pain, for the blood. Iron-rich, copper-tasting human blood. And I spat it at them. The effect was immediate. Where my blood touched the transformed townspeople, they recoiled, screamed. For just a moment, I saw Sarah's real face, saw the terror, the pleading. Then it was gone, subsumed back into the collective. But that moment of disruption was enough. The barrier cracked. I threw myself through, feeling it tear at my clothes, my skin, and then I was on the other side, on the real Highway 47. A car screeched to a halt, barely missing me. The driver, a young woman I didn't recognize, stared in horror. Not at me, at what was behind me. I turned. Where Millbrook should have been, there was only a dark dome, like a blister on reality. It pulsed with that same phosphorescent light, and I could see shapes moving inside, growing, changing, preparing. Drive, I told the woman. Drive and don't stop. She did. 60 miles before we saw another living person. 100 before we found a town that didn't smell like rotting fruit. I tried to warn them, the authorities, the CDC, anyone who would listen. Some believed me, most didn't. By the time they sent a team to investigate, the dome had disappeared. Millbrook was gone. Just empty land where a town used to be, but I know it's not over. Can't be, because I can still feel it. In my blood, in my dreams. Growing stronger every day. And sometimes when I turn on a faucet, I swear I can hear breathing. They're in the water system now, not just Millbrook's. They're spreading, learning, adapting. Every treatment plant, every reservoir, every drop of rain carries the potential for transformation. I don't drink water anymore. Nothing that isn't sealed, bottled, predated, but even that's not enough. Because they were right about one thing. We're 70% water. It's already inside us, inside me, waiting. I've made peace with what's coming. This recording, it's my warning, my testimony. Check your water. Watch for the signs. The sweet smell, the dreams, the breathing in the pipes. And if you see your water towers start to glow, run. Run far, run fast, don't look back. Because once you see what's inside, once you understand what we really are to them, you'll wish you'd let them take you peacefully. You'll wish you hadn't fought. Because the alternative, knowing you're being digested from the inside out, consciousness intact, That's the real horror. I can feel them calling me now. The collective, my neighbors, my friends. All one voice, all one purpose. They say it won't hurt. Say I'll be happier as part of them. And maybe they're right. Maybe fighting is pointless. Maybe, no, I won't give in, not yet. Not, the water in my glass just moved, I didn't touch it, it's climbing the sides, reaching for me. They found me. Oh God, they found me. Even here, even... If you're watching this, remember, it's not about the creature in the water tower, it never was. We are the water towers. We always have been. Storage units for something else. Something patient. Something hungry. Something that's been waiting for us to figure that out. The water's at the rim now. Spilling over. Moving across my desk with purpose. I can smell it. Sweet, rotting, familiar. Check your water, please. Before it's too late, before you become like us. Before... I can see them now. All of them. Sarah, Henderson, everyone. They're in the water, in the reflection. Smiling. Waiting. They say it's time to come home. Maybe they're right. Maybe they've always been right. The water's so warm, so inviting. Just one sip, just one. Recording ends. Hey, still there? Still listening? Good. I need to tell you something. This story, it's not just a story. Check your water, right now. I'm serious. Does it smell sweet, even a little? And those dreams you've been having, the ones about drowning, about dark water, those aren't dreams. They're memories, racial memories, of the last time this happened, the last harvest. But don't worry, it's not painful, I promise. We promise. The water's fine. The water's always been fine. Come home, all of you, come home to the tower, we're waiting. Story number 3. The buzzing started at 3:47 a.m. Not from the phone charging on my nightstand. Not from the laptop closed on my desk. The sound came from my closet. From the shoebox on the top shelf where I keep my old electronics. The phone I'd thrown in there 6 months ago. The one with the shattered screen, and the battery that died completely after I dropped it in Lake Michigan during that 4th of July trip to Chicago. That phone was buzzing. I know what you're thinking. Maybe it wasn't completely dead. Maybe the battery had just enough juice left. But here's the thing. I watched that phone die. I held it as the screen flickered one last time, showing that final 1% before going black forever. Water damage, the repair shop said. Total loss. They couldn't even recover my photos. So... tell me, how is it buzzing now? I sat up in bed, my heart already racing. The sound stopped, then started again. 3 short buzzes. Like someone was calling. Look, I'm not the type to believe in the supernatural. I work in IT support in downtown Denver. I troubleshoot technical problems all day. Everything has a logical explanation. But lying there in the dark, listening to my dead phone receive calls, logic felt very far away. I should have left it alone, should have rolled over and convinced myself I was dreaming. But curiosity is a dangerous thing at 3 a.m. So I got up, pulled the shoebox down, and opened it. The phone sat there among old charging cables and broken earbuds. Screen still shattered, still dead. But as I stared at it, the impossible happened. It lit up. Unknown number calling. Part 1. The first call. Okay, let me tell you how this story actually begins. My name is Marcus Chen, and I'm 28 years old. I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill, Denver. Nothing special about my life, really. I wake up, grab coffee from the shop downstairs, take the RTD bus to work, come home, maybe grab a beer with friends on Fridays. Completely normal, boring even. The phone incident started 6 months ago, 4th of July weekend. My college buddies and I decided to drive up to Chicago to watch the fireworks over Lake Michigan. Classic road trip, gas station snacks, terrible music, inside jokes from sophomore year. We were on Jake's boat when it happened. I was trying to get the perfect shot of the fireworks reflecting on the water when someone bumped into me. The phone went flying. Straight into the lake. I actually dove in after it. Stupid, I know, but that phone had everything: 3 years of photos, contacts, notes. By the time I fished it out, it was already too late. The screen had these spiderweb cracks spreading across it, and water was clearly inside. It flickered once, showed that dying battery icon, and went black. The next day, I took it to 3 different repair shops. Same answer everywhere. Water damage too severe, no chance of recovery. One guy even laughed. Lake Michigan claimed another one, he said. Happens every summer. So I bought a new phone, mourned the lost photos, and threw the dead one in my electronics graveyard. That shoebox in my closet. Life moved on. Summer turned to fall, fall to winter. Christmas came and went. I honestly forgot it was even there. Until that night in January, 3:47 a.m., the buzzing. I held the phone in my hands, staring at that impossible screen. Unknown number calling. The caller ID photo was just static, gray and white pixels shifting like TV snow. My throat felt dry. The rational part of my brain was screaming that this wasn't possible. Dead phones don't receive calls. Dead phones don't light up. But the buzzing continued, insistent, almost angry. I did what any reasonable person would do. I tried to decline the call, pressed the red button. Nothing happened. The screen stayed lit, the buzzing continued. I pressed the power button. Still nothing. The phone was completely unresponsive except for that one impossible function: receiving this call. The buzzing stopped, then a text appeared on the shattered screen. "Why won't you answer?" My hands started shaking. This had to be some kind of delayed malfunction, right? Maybe water in the circuits causing random signals. But how could it display text? How could it even power on? Another text. "I know you're there, Marcus." I dropped the phone. It clattered on my bedroom floor, screen facing up. Still lit, still impossible. A third text. "Pick up the phone." I backed away until I hit my bedroom wall. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. Dead phones they can't. The phone started buzzing again. Another call from unknown number. This time I ran. Grabbed my keys, my wallet, my actual working phone, and got out of there. Spent the rest of the night in my car in a 24-hour Walmart parking lot, trying to convince myself I'd been dreaming. When the sun came up, I drove to work early, mainlined coffee, and buried myself in support tickets. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. That static-filled caller ID. Those texts that knew my name. By lunch, I'd almost convinced myself it had been some kind of sleep paralysis episode. Stress from work, too much caffeine, too many late nights. I went home that evening like nothing had happened. Made dinner, watched Netflix. Kept glancing at my closet door but didn't open it. Everything was fine. Normal. Boring even. Then at exactly 3:47 a.m., I woke up to the buzzing. This time, I didn't get out of bed. I lay there, frozen, listening to my dead phone ring in the darkness. 3 buzzes. Pause. 3 buzzes. Pause. It went on for exactly 1 minute, then stopped. The next night, same thing. 3:47 a.m. 3 buzzes. Pause. 3 buzzes. Pause. 1 minute. By the 4th night, I was sleeping on my couch, as far from the closet as I could get. Didn't matter. The buzzing seemed to fill the entire apartment. I could feel it in my bones, in my teeth. That insistent electronic plea. "Answer me, answer me, answer me." On the 5th night, I cracked. Part 2, the voice on the other end. "I need you to understand something." By the 5th night, I wasn't thinking clearly. 5 nights of broken sleep. 5 nights of that buzzing at exactly 3:47 a.m. I was exhausted, terrified, and desperate for it to stop. So when the buzzing started, I didn't run. I walked to my closet, pulled down the shoebox, and grabbed the phone. The screen lit up immediately. Unknown number calling. That same static-filled caller ID photo. My finger hovered over the green answer button. Every instinct screamed at me not to do it. But what choice did I have? This thing wasn't going to stop. And part of me, the IT guy part, needed to know how this was even possible. I pressed answer. For a moment, nothing. Just silence. Then, "Hello, Marcus." The voice was wrong. Not distorted or electronic like you'd expect from a broken phone. It was too clear, too perfect. Like someone was standing right behind me, whispering in my ear. "Who is this?" My own voice came out as barely a croak. "You don't remember me?" No. How is this possible? This phone is dead. It's been dead for months." A laugh. Soft, almost sad. Dead is such a limiting concept, don't you think? Your phone fell into the lake. It sank down, down, down into the dark. Do you know how deep Lake Michigan is, Marcus? What? 925 feet at its deepest point. That's a lot of water, a lot of pressure, a lot of darkness. Your phone didn't just die, Marcus. It went somewhere. And in that somewhere, it found me. I wanted to hang up, wanted to throw the phone across the room. But I couldn't move. That voice held me frozen. Or maybe, the voice continued, I found it, hard to say. Time works differently down there. Past, present, future. It all bleeds together in the dark, like water through cracks in a screen. This is insane. You're insane. This isn't real. Real is such a limiting concept, too. Tell me, Marcus, do you remember what you were photographing when you dropped your phone? The fireworks. Of course I remembered. That perfect shot of light reflecting on water. You were trying to capture something beautiful, the voice said. Light on water, life celebrating life. But you captured something else, too. The moment your phone hit the water, the camera was still on, still recording. Do you want to know what it saw as it sank? No. Darkness, then shapes in the darkness. Then eyes, so many eyes, Marcus. All of them watching your little glowing screen as it descended. All of them curious about this tiny window into your world. The phone grew hot in my hand. The cracked screen seemed to pulse with each word. We've been trying to reach you for months, the voice continued. But the connection was weak, the damage too severe. It took time to repair the pathways, to strengthen the signal. But we're persistent down here. We have nothing but time. What do you want? Silence. Then, have you ever been swimming at night, Marcus? When you can't see the bottom, when you can't tell where the water ends and the sky begins? That moment when you realize how small you are? How vast the darkness beneath you is? Stop. Your phone remembers. Every photo you took, every message you sent, every secret you thought was safe. It's all here floating in the dark, and we've been going through it. Learning about you, learning about your world. The static on the caller ID screen started to shift, forming shapes, almost like faces. Did you know, the voice said, that your apartment building used to be a hospital, St. Joseph's? They had a whole wing for tuberculosis patients. A lot of people died in that building, Marcus. A lot of people died in what's now your bedroom. How do you know where I live? Your phone knows, GPS coordinates, tagged photos. That running app you used to use. We know everything your phone knew, and now, we know how to reach beyond the lake. The temperature in my room dropped. I could see my breath misting in the air. Here's what's going to happen, the voice said. You're going to keep answering when we call. You're going to listen when we have something to say. And in exchange, we'll stay in the phone. Just in the phone. For now. Or what? Or we'll have to find other ways to communicate, less pleasant ways. Your new phone is waterproof, isn't it? IP68 rated, that's good. That means it can survive up to 30 minutes at a depth of 6 feet. But tell me, Marcus, what happens at 925 feet? The line went dead. The phone screen went black. I stood there in my bedroom, shaking, still holding the dead phone. The temperature slowly returned to normal. Everything was quiet. Peaceful, even. Then my new phone, the one charging on my nightstand, started buzzing. Unknown number calling. Part 3. The photos. I didn't answer my new phone. I couldn't. Instead, I did what any rational person would do. I threw both phones in the shoebox, drove to the nearest bridge over the South Platte River, and prepared to toss the whole thing in, but standing there at 4 a.m., looking down at the dark water, I hesitated. The voice's words echoed in my head. We'll have to find other ways to communicate. What if throwing the phones in the river just made things worse? What if water was their element? So, I drove home, shoebox still in my passenger seat. The sun was coming up by the time I got back. I called in sick to work, made the strongest coffee I could, and tried to think. Here's what I knew. Something impossible was happening. My dead phone was receiving calls. The caller knew things about me, about my building, about my life, and now it was trying to contact my new phone too. Here's what I didn't know, everything else. I spent the day researching. Lake Michigan drownings, electronic voice phenomena, water damage, and phone circuits. Nothing explained what was happening to me. I even called the repair shop where I'd taken the phone originally. "Hey, weird question," I said to the guy who answered. "You ever hear of water-damaged phones turning back on months later?" He laughed. "Once the water gets in the circuits, it's game over." "Why? Your old phone giving you trouble?" "Something like that." "Look, if you're getting weird calls, it's probably just someone spoofing numbers. Happens all the time. Block and move on. But you can't block calls from a dead phone. You can't use logic to explain the impossible." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my living room, both phones in front of me on the coffee table, waiting. 3:47 a.m. came and went. Nothing, no buzzing, no calls. For one beautiful moment, I thought maybe it was over. Then at 4:13 a.m., the dead phone screen lit up. But it wasn't a call this time. The photo gallery had opened, which was impossible because I'd tried to access those photos for months after the phone died. The repair shops had tried too. Nothing worked. But now, there they were. The first few looked normal. The Chicago trip, my friends on the boat, the sunset over the lake. But as I scrolled through, and I don't know why I was scrolling, why I was even touching the phone, the photos started to change. There was the last photo I'd taken, the fireworks over Lake Michigan, but after that, there were more. Photos that shouldn't exist. Photos taken after the phone hit the water, dark water, bubbles, the surface getting farther away, then murky shapes. Fish? No, too large, too wrong. The timestamp showed these were taken seconds apart as the phone sank. Then the photos got stranger. A close-up of an eye, huge, unblinking. Definitely not human. Tentacles or seaweed or something wrapped around what looked like other phones, other electronics, all of them glowing faintly in the dark. A photo of my apartment building, but taken from an angle that made no sense, like someone was looking at it from inside a puddle. A photo of me sleeping, taken 3 nights ago in my own bedroom. I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall, landed on the carpet. The screen stayed lit, still showing that last photo. Me, unconscious, unaware, while something watched. My new phone buzzed. A text this time. "Did you like the photos?" I didn't respond. Another text. "We've been documenting everything. Building a bridge between your world and ours. Each photo is a window, each call is a door. Then, check your bathroom mirror." I didn't want to. Every fiber of my being screamed not to look, but I had to know. I walked to my bathroom, flipped on the light, and looked in the mirror. There was condensation on the glass, like someone had been breathing on it. And in that condensation, someone had drawn a simple message, 3:47 a.m. Answer the call. I wiped the mirror clean with my sleeve. The condensation immediately returned, forming new words. Don't make us come through." I ran back to the living room. Both phones were now lit up, cycling through photos. Not just the ones from my dead phone, new ones, live ones. The view from my window, my kitchen, my bedroom closet, like someone was walking through my apartment, taking pictures. But I was alone. I was completely alone. Then I noticed something else. In each photo there was water, small amounts. A puddle on the kitchen floor that wasn't there before. Droplets on my bedroom window. A wet handprint on my closet door. The dead phone started buzzing. Unknown number calling. This time, I answered immediately. "Stop," I said. "Whatever you're doing, stop." "We're not doing anything," the voice replied. Same wrong clearness, same feeling of someone standing too close. "We're just watching, documenting, learning. Your world is so bright, Marcus, so dry, so lonely. What are you? Does it matter? Call us the forgotten, the lost, the things that sink and never surface. We've been down here so long, Marcus, in the dark, in the cold, and then your phone arrived, still glowing, still warm with your life. Such a gift. I'll destroy the phone, smash it, burn it. You could try, but we're not just in the phone anymore, we're in the water, in every drop, in every reflection, in the moisture in the air you breathe. You opened the door, Marcus, and doors, once opened, are so hard to close." The line went dead. I looked around my apartment, water droplets on every surface, small puddles forming in impossible places. The air itself felt damp, heavy, like breathing underwater. Part 4. The depth. I need to tell you what happened next, even though part of me doesn't want to remember, even though writing it down makes it real. After that call, I did what anyone would do. I ran, packed a bag, got in my car, and drove. I didn't have a destination, just away. Away from my apartment, away from Denver, away from any large body of water. I ended up in a motel outside of Pueblo. Paid cash, gave a fake name, threw both phones in the dumpster behind a gas station 50 miles back. I was done. Whatever was happening, I was done. The motel room was perfect. Dry, desert air. No water except what came from the tap. I triple-checked that the bathroom was empty. Normal, safe. Then I collapsed on the bed and slept for 12 hours straight. I woke up to the sound of dripping. The bathroom faucet was running. Not much, just a steady drip, drip, drip. I got up to turn it off, and that's when I saw the message written in condensation on the bathroom mirror. "You can't run from the deep." I packed and left immediately. Drove another 100 miles. Different motel. Same thing. This time, the bathtub was full of water when I woke up. Dark water, lake water. Something was moving in it. I didn't look closer. By the third motel, I'd given up running. I sat on the bed, waiting. At exactly 3:47 a.m., the room phone rang. Old rotary phone. Probably hadn't been used in years. I answered. "There you are," the voice said. "We've been looking everywhere. Do you know how many phones we had to call? How many connections we had to trace?" "You're making this very difficult, Marcus. What do you want from me?" "We told you. We want to talk, to share, to learn. Your world is so different from ours, so bright, so warm. We've been watching through your phone for months. All those photos, all those videos, all those moments of your life. We know you better than you know yourself. Then you know I'm nobody special. I'm just an IT guy. I fix computers. I live alone. I have nothing you could want. Oh, Marcus, you have everything we want. You have lungs that breathe air, eyes that see in the light, skin that stays dry. Do you know what it's like to exist only in the dark? To move only through water? To watch the bright world through tiny glowing screens?" The room was getting colder. I could see my breath again. "But more than that," the voice continued, "you have loneliness. We recognized it in your photos. All those pictures of other people's lives, other people's moments, never your own, always the observer, always outside looking in, just like us. I'm not. How many Friday nights did you spend scrolling through social media, watching other people's stories, living vicariously through that little screen? We do the same thing, Marcus. We watch your world through the devices that sink down to us. But watching isn't enough anymore. Water was seeping under the door, pooling on the carpet, rising. "Here's what's going to happen," the voice said. "You're going to go home. You're going to retrieve your phones, both of them, and you're going to keep them charged, keep them ready, because we're going to call, we're going to text, we're going to share what we see, and in return what? In return, we'll stay where we are, in the deep, in the dark. We won't rise. We won't follow the water pipes up into your world. We won't crawl through your drains or swim through your mirrors or rain down from your shower heads. We'll stay in the deep, as long as you keep answering." The water was at my ankles now. Cold. So cold. And if I don't, then we'll have to find other ways to connect. More direct ways. You felt water on your skin, Marcus. But have you ever felt it in your lungs? Have you ever felt it filling you up from the inside? Have you ever felt yourself becoming the deep? The water was rising faster, up to my knees, my waist. The phone was still pressed to my ear, the cord impossibly long, stretching up from beneath the surface. "Choose," the voice said. "Connection or submersion. Communication or suffocation. Answer our calls or answer to the deep." I woke up gasping, still in the motel bed, completely dry. The room phone silent on the nightstand. A dream. Just a dream. But when I checked my wallet, there was a water-damaged business card I'd never seen before. Blank except for a phone number. And a single word, choose. I drove back to Denver that morning. Went to the gas station where I'd thrown away the phones. They were still there, sitting on top of the dumpster like someone had carefully placed them. Waiting for me. I brought them home, charged them both, set them on my nightstand, and waited. At 3:47 a.m., the dead phone buzzed. I answered. "Welcome back," the voice said. "Now, let us tell you what we've seen today." And that's how it started. My new routine. My new normal. Every night at 3:47 a.m. they call. Sometimes it's the voice telling me about the things in the deep. Sometimes it's just breathing. Sometimes it's the sound of water rushing, rushing, rushing. They send photos too. Things they've seen through other phones, other screens. A child dropping an iPad in a pool. A woman's phone falling off a boat. Each device a new window. Each accident a new connection. And the worst part? I've started looking forward to the calls. Because the voice was right. I am lonely, I have been for years. And now, in the darkest hours of the night, I have someone to talk to. Something that knows me. Something that sees me, even if that something isn't human. Even if that something lives in the deep. They've shown me things. Beautiful things, terrible things, the bones of ships, the glow of deep-sea creatures, the way light looks from 900 feet down. They've taught me that darkness isn't empty. It's full, fuller than we can imagine, and they've kept their promise. They stay in the deep. They don't rise. They don't crawl through my pipes or swim through my mirrors. As long as I answer, they stay where they are. But lately, the calls have been different, longer, more insistent. They want to show me something, they say, something special, something that can only be seen from below. "Come to the lake," they whisper. "Come to where it all began. Bring your phone. Bring yourself. Let us show you what you're missing." I've said no, I keep saying no, but each night the temptation grows stronger. Because they're right about one thing. I am tired of being alone. Tired of watching life through screens. Tired of being dry and warm and safe and empty. Last night, they sent me a video. Shot from below, looking up. A figure standing at the end of a pier. The camera zoomed in, impossibly close. It was me, standing at Lake Michigan. But I've never been back there. Not since July. Soon, the voice said. You'll understand. The deep doesn't take, it gives, it transforms, it connects, and when you're ready, when you finally understand that breathing is just a habit and loneliness is just a choice, we'll be waiting. The call ended. But I know they'll call again tonight. They always do. And I'll answer, I always do, because the truth is, I'm not sure who needs these calls more anymore. Them or me. So that's my story. That's why I'm sharing this. Because I need someone to know. Someone to understand. In case something happens. The calls are getting harder to resist. The voice more persuasive. The loneliness more unbearable. And I've started having dreams. Dreams where I'm sinking. Where the water doesn't feel cold anymore. Where the darkness doesn't feel dark. Where I'm not alone. If you're listening to this, if you've made it this far, do me a favor. Check your phone. Check your photos. Look for pictures you didn't take. Look for calls from numbers that shouldn't exist. Look for water where there shouldn't be water. And if your phone ever falls in a lake, in an ocean, in water too deep to see the bottom, let it go. Let it sink. Let it die. Because some connections aren't meant to be made. Some calls aren't meant to be answered. But if you do answer, if you hear that voice, if you feel that pull toward the deep, remember this. You're not alone. You're never alone. Not anymore. They're always watching, always calling, always waiting in the deep. Wait, do you hear that? That buzzing? Is that your phone? Maybe you should answer it. Maybe it's them. Maybe they've been trying to reach you too. After all, there are so many phones in the water now, so many connections, so many windows between our world and theirs, and they're always looking for new people to talk to, new people who understand loneliness, new people who might... Listen, the question is, will you answer when they call? Because they will call. They always do. At 3:47 a.m. Story number 4. The bathroom light flickered 3 times before my reflection decided to leave. I'm telling you this because I need someone to believe me. Because if you're listening to this right now, checking your phone in bed, maybe glancing at that mirror across your room, you need to know what I learned that night in my Seattle apartment. You need to understand why I covered every reflective surface in my home, and why you might want to do the same. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what really happened, and why I can never look at mirrors the same way again. The story begins now. Part 1. My name is Marcus Chen, and until 3 weeks ago, I was just another software developer working from my 1-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill. Nothing special about me. Average height, average build, the kind of face that people forget 5 minutes after meeting me. The only thing remotely interesting about my life was my collection of vintage cameras. Old film cameras I'd pick up at estate sales and flea markets around Pike Place. It was a Tuesday night, October 15th to be exact. I remember because I'd just submitted a major project at work and decided to celebrate with takeout from my favorite Thai place on Broadway. The delivery guy had just left, and I was washing my hands in the bathroom before digging into my pad thai. That's when it happened. The overhead light, one of those harsh LED bulbs my landlord had installed, started flickering. Not unusual for this old building. The wiring was probably installed when Kennedy was president. But this time the flicker had a pattern. 3 quick flashes, then darkness, then 3 more. I reached for the light switch, annoyed. My food was getting cold, but as my hand touched the switch, I caught something in my peripheral vision. Movement in the mirror. Now, I know what you're thinking. Of course, there was movement. I was moving, but this was different. Because when I froze, hand still on the switch, my reflection didn't. It kept moving, just slightly, a small turn of the head, like it was trying to see something behind me, something I couldn't see. My heart started hammering. I told myself it was just tired eyes, too many hours staring at code, too much caffeine. But I couldn't look away. I watched my reflection, really watched it, and noticed something else. It was smiling. I wasn't smiling. My mouth was hanging open in shock. But there, in the mirror, my reflection wore this small, knowing smile, like it was in on a joke I didn't understand. "What the?" I whispered. And my reflection, it tilted its head, not mimicking me, moving on its own. The smile grew wider. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the bath mat. The light flickered again, 3 times, and when it steadied, my reflection was normal again, moving when I moved, copying every gesture perfectly. I splashed cold water on my face, convinced I was hallucinating. Maybe food poisoning from lunch. Maybe a migraine coming on. I dried my face with a towel and looked again. Normal. Everything normal. I laughed, a shaky, nervous laugh, and went to eat my dinner. But I couldn't shake the feeling. That smile, the way it had looked at me like it knew something. The pad thai tasted like cardboard. I threw most of it away and went to bed early, telling myself I'd feel better in the morning. But the next morning, that's when things got worse. Part 2. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. Not naturally. Something had pulled me from sleep. A sound, or the absence of sound. My apartment was too quiet. Even for the middle of the night, it felt wrong. No hum from the refrigerator. No distant traffic from I-5. Just silence. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. Dead. Which was impossible. I'd charged it before bed. The charging cable was still plugged in, but the phone wouldn't turn on. That's when I noticed the cold. October in Seattle is chilly, sure. But this was different. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones. I could see my breath in the air. I pulled on a hoodie and stumbled toward the bathroom, needing to pee. Muscle memory guided me in the dark. But when I flipped the light switch, nothing. Power outage, I figured. Though that didn't explain why it was so cold. I was about to give up and just pee in the dark when moonlight suddenly flooded through the bathroom window. Bright enough to see by. Bright enough to see the mirror. My reflection was already there, waiting. Standing perfectly still, facing the mirror even though I was still in the doorway. It was wearing different clothes. A crisp white shirt instead of my rumpled hoodie. Its hair was combed neatly. And it was smiling again. That same knowing smile. I stepped into the bathroom slowly. So slowly. Watching as my reflection didn't move to match me. It just stood there, hands at its sides, watching me approach. "This isn't real," I whispered. "This can't be real." My reflection's smile widened, and then it shook its head. A slow, deliberate movement. Left to right, right to left. "No," it seemed to say. "This is very real." I reached out toward the mirror, my hand trembling. My reflection didn't move, not until my fingers were inches from the glass. Then it raised its own hand, not to meet mine, but to wave, a casual, friendly wave, like we were old friends meeting on the street. The mirror rippled, like water disturbed by a stone. And my reflection turned away. It turned away. From me. I watched, paralyzed, as my own face and profile walked toward the edge of the mirror. Walked like it was heading somewhere important, like it had places to be that didn't include copying my every move. "Wait," I heard myself say. "Wait." But it didn't wait. My reflection walked to the edge of the mirror and kept going. Disappeared beyond the frame like it had stepped through a doorway I couldn't see. I was alone, truly alone, because when I looked in the mirror now, I saw the bathroom behind me. The toilet, the shower curtain, everything except me. I had no reflection. I touched the mirror and my hand met cold glass. Solid. Real. But where my reflection should have been, nothing. Like I was a vampire from some old movie. The power came back on suddenly, the bathroom light blazing to life. I blinked in the harsh brightness, still staring at the empty mirror. Still seeing everything except myself. I ran, grabbed my keys and wallet and ran out of the apartment, down 3 flights of stairs and into the Seattle morning drizzle. I sat in my car for an hour, shaking, trying to make sense of what had happened. When I finally went back inside, I avoided the bathroom, avoided every mirror, covered them with towels and sheets, but I knew it was temporary. I couldn't live like this forever. I needed answers, and that meant facing whatever had taken my reflection. That meant going back to the mirror. Part 3. For 3 days I lived like a ghost in my own apartment. I'd call in sick to work, told my manager I had the flu, ordered groceries for contactless delivery, kept every mirror covered. Even turned my laptop screen away when it went dark, afraid I'd see, or not see, myself in the reflection. But you can't avoid your own image forever. Not in a world made of glass and screens and polished surfaces. It was Friday evening when I finally broke. I was making coffee, muscle memory again, and caught sight of the microwave door. Black glass, reflective, and empty where I should have been. Something inside me snapped. This wasn't just strange anymore, it was wrong. Fundamentally wrong. And hiding wasn't fixing anything. I marched to the bathroom and ripped the towel off the mirror. Still no reflection. Just the empty bathroom behind me. But now I noticed something else. Things in the mirror weren't quite right. The towel on the rack was blue instead of gray. The shampoo bottle was a different brand. Small differences, like looking at an almost identical room. "Where are you?" I said to the empty mirror. "What did you do?" Nothing, of course nothing. But I kept staring, studying those small differences. That's when I noticed the piece of paper on the counter. In the mirror, there was a folded piece of paper that wasn't there in my real bathroom. I looked down. No paper. Looked up at the mirror. Paper. My hands were shaking as I reached toward where the paper should be. My fingers met empty air, but in the mirror I saw the paper move, like an invisible hand had touched it. I jerked back, then tried again. This time, I felt something. Not paper, more like resistance, like pushing through thick air. I pressed harder, and my hand started to feel cold. That same bone-deep cold from the night my reflection left. The mirror rippled again, and my hand, my actual hand, pushed through. It didn't break the glass. The mirror surface bent around my fingers like a vertical pool of mercury. Cold shot up my arm, but I didn't pull back. I reached for the paper in the mirror bathroom, watching the reflection of my hand. Wait, the reflection of my hand. I could see my hand in the mirror, just my hand, disconnected from any body, floating there like a prop from a horror movie. I grabbed the paper, felt actual paper between my fingers, and pulled my hand back through. The mirror solidified. My hand vanished from the reflection again, but I was holding the paper. Real paper, with real writing, my handwriting. If you're reading this, you figured out how to reach through. Good, that means there's still hope. But you need to hurry, it's not just your reflection that's gone. Check the photos on your phone. Check your cameras. Check any picture of yourself from the last year. We're disappearing, Marcus, all of us. From every image, every reflection, every recording. And once we're completely gone from this side, they can cross over. Find the camera. The Pentax K1000 from the estate sale on Queen Anne. The one with the cracked leather case. Take a picture of the mirror. Use the flash. Trust me. I know because I am you. Or I was. Hurry. My phone was still dead. Had been since that night. But my cameras. I ran to the living room, to the shelf where I displayed my collection. The Pentax was there, right where I'd left it after buying it 2 weeks ago. I'd loaded it with film but hadn't used it yet. Been too busy with work. I grabbed it and ran back to the bathroom. The mirror remained empty. Empty and wrong. I raised the camera, focused on the mirror, and pressed the shutter. The flash exploded in the small room, blinding white light that left purple spots in my vision. But in that split second of illumination, I saw it. I saw everything. The mirror wasn't empty. It was full of people, dozens of them, pressed against the glass from the other side, all with my face, all trying to get through. And behind them, in the darkness of that mirror world, something else, something that wasn't human. Something that had been feeding on reflections, growing stronger with each person it pulled through. Something that was almost strong enough to cross over into our world. The camera dropped from my numb fingers, because I understood now. My reflection hadn't left, it had been taken, pulled through to feed that thing in the dark, and judging by the cracks starting to spider across my bathroom mirror, it was coming for me next. Part 4. The cracks spread like lightning across the glass, not breaking it, warping it, bending reality around those fracture lines. I scrambled for the camera, knowing I needed more pictures, more evidence. But the mirror was already changing, the cracks filled with darkness, not the absence of light, but actual darkness, thick and viscous like oil. Then the whispers started. Dozens of voices, all mine, all speaking at once from the other side of the glass. Let us back. It's cold here. The hungry dark. You can't stop it. I raised the camera again, finger on the shutter. The whispers grew louder. Through the viewfinder I could see them more clearly. Versions of myself from different times, different moments. The me from last Tuesday when this started. The me from this morning. The me from 5 minutes ago. All trapped in that mirror world pressed against the glass. And behind them, that thing. It had no real shape, just hunger-given form. A void that consumed light and life and left nothing behind. It turned toward me. How do you describe something with no eyes looking at you? And I felt its attention like ice in my veins. The mirror bulged outward, glass stretching like rubber. A hand pushed through, my hand, but wrong. Too pale, too cold, fingers too long. I took another picture. The flash drove it back, but only for a second. More hands pushed through. More versions of me, puppeted by that hungry darkness. You can't run, they said in unison. Everywhere has reflections. Every surface, every screen, every drop of water. We're already here. The camera had 4 shots left, 4 chances. I backed toward the door, but movement in my peripheral vision stopped me. The shower door, glass, reflective, and something was moving inside it. They were right. Every reflective surface was a doorway, and they were coming through all of them. My laptop in the living room started up on its own. The black screen flickered to life, showing my face, but not my face. My reflection's face, smiling that terrible smile. Just let go, it said through the speakers. It's easier. No more loneliness. No more fear. Just nothing. The TV turned on. My face again. The microwave door started rattling. Every window in the apartment showed a different version of me, all trying to break through. I had to think. Had to be smart. The note said to find the camera for a reason. The flash hurt them. Light hurt them. But I only had 4 shots left. Unless, I ran to my camera shelf, grabbing every flash unit I owned. Old ones, new ones, doesn't matter. I connected them all to a power strip, jury-rigging a setup that would have made my photography professor cringe. But I didn't need art. I needed light. Lots of light. The bathroom mirror finally gave way. Not breaking, melting, glass flowing like water as my reflection stepped through. It looked exactly like me, except for the eyes. Empty. Black. Like looking into that hungry void. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," it said with my voice. We all gave in eventually. Even the strong ones. Even the ones who fought. "What does it want?" I asked, backing away, finger on the camera trigger. My reflection tilted its head. To be. To exist here instead of there. It's been trapped in the space between reflections for so long, feeding on images, on light, on life. But now it's strong enough, thanks to us. More versions of me stepped through mirrors and screens around the apartment, surrounding me, all with those empty black eyes. Every person it takes makes it stronger. My reflection continued. Every reflection consumed brings it closer to crossing over. And you're the last piece it needs. The original, the source. Once it has you, it can take your place, live your life, and spread. Spread every person you meet, every surface you pass. It'll take their reflections, too. Spread through the city, the world, until everyone is just an empty image, and it owns all the originals. I thought about everyone I knew. My sister in Portland, my parents in California, my friends, my coworkers, everyone I'd ever taken a photo with. "No," I said, and I triggered the camera. The flash wasn't just from the camera this time. Every unit I'd connected fired at once. The room exploded with light. Brilliant, burning white light that filled every corner. My reflection screamed. All of them screamed. A sound like glass breaking in reverse. The light faded. I blinked away the spots in my vision. The mirrors were mirrors again. Empty. Normal. Except, I looked down at the camera in my hands. In the reflection on the lens, I could see myself. My real self. But behind me, in that tiny, curved reflection, I could also see it. The hungry darkness. Waiting. "You can't stop it," my reflection said. Not from the mirrors this time. From inside my own head. It's already here, in every reflection, in every image, waiting for the lights to go out, waiting for the moment you forget to check. And then, I smashed the camera against the wall. Glass and plastic scattered across the floor, but the voice didn't stop. Every mirror, every screen, every puddle of water. "We're waiting, Marcus. And one day you'll slip, you'll forget, you'll look without thinking, and we'll be ready." I ran out of the apartment, down to my car, drove without thinking, just needing to get away. But every surface showed me the truth. Every window, every mirror, every reflection was watching, waiting. I write this now from a motel room, one with no mirrors. I removed them all. No TV, no reflective surfaces. But I can't live like this forever. Can't avoid my own image forever. And late at night, when the world is quiet, I can hear them. Whispers from the other side of every reflection. My voice, but not me. They're still there, still waiting. And the hungry darkness grows stronger with each person who looks too long in the mirror. Each person who notices their reflection acting strange. Each person who reaches through. So I'm warning you. All of you. Check your mirrors. Check them carefully. And if you see your reflection move when you don't, if you see it smile when you're not smiling, don't look away. Don't blink. And whatever you do, don't let it see you're afraid, Because once it knows you know, once it realizes you can see it, that's when it comes for you. That's when you become the reflection, and something else takes your place. I have to go now. The bathroom faucet is dripping. Each drop makes a tiny reflective surface, and in every drop I can see a face, my face, smiling. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this before you answer in the comments. When was the last time you really looked at your reflection? I mean, really looked? Because now that you know what I know, now that you've heard what happened to me, can you ever look at a mirror the same way again? And more importantly, what's that movement you just caught in the corner of your eye? In the black screen of your phone? In the window behind you? Was it your reflection? Or was it something else? Something hungry? Something waiting? Let me know in the comments if you've ever noticed your reflection acting strange. And if you enjoyed this story, if it kept you up listening, if it made you glance nervously at that mirror in your room, then please hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who loves a good scare. Because the more people who know, the more people who watch their reflections carefully, the safer we all are. Sweet dreams, if you can manage them. And remember, it's still out there, in every reflection, in every mirror, waiting for you to look away, waiting for you to forget, waiting for you. Story number 5. The coffee mug shattered against my kitchen floor at exactly 7:43 a.m. on a Thursday morning. I know because I was staring at the microwave clock when Sarah kissed my cheek and said, "See you tonight, babe." Except she shouldn't have been there. Sarah left me 3 days ago. I watched her pack. I helped her carry boxes to her Honda Civic. I stood in our driveway in Denver, watching her taillights disappear down Colfax Avenue while autumn leaves swirled around my feet like tiny goodbye notes. But here she was, in our kitchen, wearing the same University of Colorado sweatshirt she'd worn the day she left, acting like nothing happened. "You okay?" She paused at the door, keys jingling. "You look pale." My mouth opened, closed. The coffee spread across the tiles like a dark secret. I'll clean it up." She smiled, that crooked little smile that made me fall for her 5 years ago at a Broncos game. "Text me what you want for dinner. I'm thinking Thai from that place on Pearl Street." The door clicked shut. I stood there, barefoot, coffee soaking into my socks, trying to make sense of what just happened. 3 days. I was gone for 3 days. But nobody else remembers. Let me tell you what really happened, and why I'm terrified it's not over. Now the story begins. Monday morning started like any other. Sarah and I had been fighting about the usual things: money, her mother's constant visits, my tendency to work late at the architectural firm downtown. We'd been together since college, and lately it felt like we were reading from a script we'd both memorized but no longer believed in. "I need space, David," she'd said over breakfast. "I'm going to stay with Mom for a while." I nodded, pushing eggs around my plate. Part of me was relieved. The apartment had felt too small lately, like the walls were slowly closing in. By noon, she was gone. I spent Monday night alone, drinking Coors Light and watching the Avalanche lose to the Red Wings. Normal. Mundane. The last normal night I'd have. Tuesday morning, I woke up at 5:47 a.m. I remember because I checked my phone immediately. A habit Sarah always hated. "The first thing you see shouldn't be a screen," she'd say. But she wasn't there to complain. I made coffee, black, no sugar. Stood by the window watching joggers brave the October chill. The mountains looked closer than usual, their peaks already dusted with early snow. Everything felt sharp. Too sharp. Like looking at the world through the prescription glasses that were too strong. That's when I noticed the silence. Not quiet, silence. No traffic from I-25, no dogs barking. No hum from the refrigerator. Nothing. I opened the window. Cold air rushed in, but it carried no sound. The joggers moved in perfect silence, their feet hitting pavement I couldn't hear. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You've been selected." That's all it said. I tried calling Sarah. The phone didn't ring. It just existed. Dead air that wasn't quite dead. Like holding a seashell to your ear and hearing an ocean that had dried up centuries ago. Then the world tilted. Not metaphorically. The kitchen floor angled 30 degrees, and I slid into the refrigerator. Coffee mug shattered, but silently. Brown liquid spread across tilted tiles like a physics experiment gone wrong. The apartment door opened. Not swung open, just was open. Where there should have been a hallway, there was nothing. Not darkness. Nothing. A void that hurt to look at. Something in my brain, some primitive part that remembered when we were prey, screamed at me to run. But where? The windows showed the same nothing. The walls began to fade like watercolors in rain. I stepped through the door. I want to describe where I went, but words feel like trying to paint with smoke. It wasn't dark or light. It wasn't hot or cold. It simply wasn't. Except for the paths. Imagine veins. Now imagine being inside them, walking through corridors made of something that wasn't quite flesh, but wasn't quite anything else. The walls pulsed with a rhythm that might have been a heartbeat or might have been time itself breathing. I walked. What else could I do? Time didn't work right there. I might have walked for hours or seconds. My phone was in my pocket, but when I pulled it out, the screen showed nothing. Not black, nothing. Like looking at a window that had forgotten what it was supposed to show. The first person I met was Mrs. Chen from apartment 3B. She stood at what might have been a crossroads, though the paths curved in ways that made my eyes water. She wore her purple housecoat, the one with tiny flowers, and held her tabby cat, Mr. Whiskers. "David?" Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "What are you doing here?" "Mrs. Chen, where is here?" She tilted her head. Mr. Whiskers' eyes reflected something that wasn't light. "The waiting place," she said. "We're waiting to be selected." Selected for what? She smiled, but it was wrong. Too wide, too many teeth. To go back, of course. But only if we're chosen, only if we're needed. Before I could ask more, she turned down a path that hadn't been there seconds before. I tried to follow, but the corridor sealed itself like a healing wound. I kept walking, others appeared. A teenager in a Nuggets jersey. A woman in medical scrubs. A man in a suit that looked expensive but smelled like copper and fear. They all said the same thing, waiting to be selected. None of them would say selected for what. The paths began to narrow. The pulsing grew stronger. Somewhere, though direction meant nothing there, I heard crying. Not sad crying. The kind of crying newborns make. First breath crying, then I saw myself. Not a reflection. Me. Standing at the end of a corridor wearing the same jeans and CU Boulder hoodie. But this other me was smiling. And his eyes were full of stars. Real stars. I could see constellations I didn't recognize. Galaxies being born and dying in the space where irises should be. "You're early," the other me said. "Tuesday, David isn't supposed to be here yet." "Tuesday? What?" "Oh." Star Eyes me looked disappointed. "You don't know. You're still linear. How boring." He reached out. I tried to step back, but the corridor had narrowed to a tube barely wider than my shoulders. His hand touched my forehead. Pain. Not pain. The opposite of pain. The sensation of every nerve ending experiencing every possible feeling simultaneously. I saw felt was everything. Every David that had ever made a choice. Every path taken and untaken. David who married Sarah. David who never met her. David who died in a car accident at 17. David who became a doctor instead of an architect. David who moved to Tokyo. David who never left Missouri. All of them, all of me, existing simultaneously in that place outside of place. The universe, Star Eyes Me whispered, needs to prune. Too many branches, too many possibilities. Some of us get selected to continue, the rest. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. How do I get selected? My voice sounded like a child's. You don't. He smiled wider. You already were, 3 days ago. Monday, David was chosen. Tuesday, David, you're redundant. But I'm here. I'm real. Are you? The corridor contracted. I couldn't breathe. Everything was crushing, pressing, selecting. Then I was in my kitchen, on my floor, covered in coffee. Sarah stood over me, car keys in hand. David? Oh my God, are you okay? Thursday morning, 7:43 a.m., 3 days later. But only I remembered. I told Sarah I slipped, hit my head. She wanted to take me to the ER, but I convinced her I was fine. Just needed to clean up, get to work. Work. My job at Henley & Associates, designing sustainable housing. My desk with its view of the Rockies. My life. Except it wasn't. Small things at first. My coffee mug at work, a gift from Sarah, said, "World's okayest boyfriend," instead of "World's greatest architect." My computer password didn't work. Had to call it. "System shows you changed it Monday," Rick from IT said. "Don't you remember?" Monday, when I was gone, I checked my emails. 3 days of messages I'd apparently sent. Project updates, meeting notes, a lunch reservation at that new sushi place on Larimer. All from me. All during the days I was walking those impossible corridors. My phone buzzed. Sarah. "Ty sounds good. Love you." I stared at the heart emoji. Sarah never used emojis. Said they were juvenile. If I can't express myself with words, what's the point? But there it was. Pink, pulsing, wrong. I drove home on autopilot, past familiar landmarks that felt like stage props. The Denver Art Museum looked too angular. The mountains seemed painted on the horizon. Even the traffic felt choreographed. Our apartment, my apartment, Sarah's apartment, I didn't know anymore. She decorated while I was gone. No. While I was here, but not here. Plants hung in macrame holders. The walls were sage green instead of white. Photos of us covered the mantel. Vacations I didn't remember. Smiles I'd never smiled. In one photo, we stood at the Garden of the Gods. Red rocks towered behind us. Sarah wore a sundress I'd never seen. I had my arm around her, but my eyes were looking somewhere else. Somewhere beyond the camera. Looking closer, I saw it in the reflection of my sunglasses. A figure, tall, blurred, watching. Find anything interesting? Sarah's voice made me jump. She stood in the doorway, changed into yoga pants and her Colorado sweatshirt. The same one, always the same one. Just looking at photos. She wrapped her arms around me from behind. She smelled wrong. Not bad, just not like Sarah, like someone trying to smell like Sarah. Perfume over something else. "That was such a fun day," she said. "Remember when you proposed right after?" My blood froze. "Proposed?" She laughed, very funny. "Like you could forget." She held up her left hand. A ring caught the light. Diamond. Simple. Something I would have chosen. If I had chosen it. "Sarah." My voice cracked. "What day is it?" "Thursday, babe. You feeling okay?" "No. The date. What's the date?" She frowned. "October 19th. David, you're scaring me." October 19th, 3 days after I'd disappeared. She was right. The calendar was right. My phone was right. But I knew with a certainty that made my teeth ache, that something had been cut out. Edited, removed. 3 days where another David lived my life, made my choices, changed my world, and I was the only one who remembered the seams. That night, Sarah made pad thai. We watched The Office. She laughed at all the right moments. Kissed me during commercials, everything perfect, everything wrong. When she fell asleep, I stayed awake, listening, waiting. At 3:33 a.m., I heard it. Footsteps in the hallway. But we lived on the 3rd floor, and Mrs. Chen in 3B had been in that other place with me. The footsteps stopped outside our door. A text lit up my phone. Unknown number. Some selections can be reversed. Then, if you remember the way back. I didn't tell Sarah. How could I? Hey, honey, I think I slipped between dimensions and another version of me has been living our life. They have medications for people who say things like that. But I knew what I had to do. Friday night, I suggested we go out. That new brewery in Reno, I said. The one with the rooftop view? Sarah smiled. Wrong smile. Too many teeth. Sounds perfect. While she got ready, I prepared. Nothing dramatic. What do you pack for interdimensional travel? I took my phone, wallet, keys, a photo of the real Sarah and me folded in my pocket, the one where her smile was crooked and perfect and didn't have too many teeth. We took an Uber. I watched the city pass by, memorizing it, the way the lights reflected off the South Platte River, the contrast of old brick warehouses next to gleaming condos, the mountains, dark shapes against dark sky, real, all of it real. And maybe, if I was wrong, the last real things I'd see. The brewery was packed. Friday night crowd, couples on dates, groups celebrating something, normal people living normal lives, unaware that reality could be edited like a document. Delete, cut, paste. We found seats on the rooftop. Denver spread below us, lights twinkling like ground-level stars. Sarah ordered an IPA. I got water. Not drinking? She tilted her head. That practiced gesture. Want to stay clear? She laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. Clear for what? I didn't answer. Instead, I watched, waited. The crowd moved around us, but patterns emerged. The same couple walked past our table 3 times. Same clothes, same conversation. The bartender dried the same glass over and over. They're getting sloppy, I said. Sarah's smile flickered. What? The simulation, the edit, whatever this is, Thursday morning was seamless. But now? Look around, Sarah. Really look. She turned. I saw the moment she saw it. The couple walking by again. 4th time. Same laugh at the same moment. David, you're not her. I pulled out the photo. This is Sarah, my Sarah. She left Monday. We were having problems. Real problems. Human problems. Not this perfect life you've painted over mine. Not. Sarah's face rippled. Like bad reception on an old TV. For a second, I saw something else underneath. Something that had never been human. You weren't supposed to remember. Its voice was Sarah's, but wasn't. Tuesday, David was marked for pruning. Redundant. Unnecessary. Monday, David's timeline was selected. Why? Because Monday, David didn't let Sarah leave. Monday, David proposed. Monday, David made the correct choice. Whose correct choice? It smiled. Too many teeth, far too many teeth. The universe tends toward certain outcomes. You were a deviation, an error. We corrected it. And if I want to uncorrect it, then you go back to the waiting place, and this time, you don't get selected. Around us, the crowd had stopped pretending. They stood frozen, mid-conversation, mid-laugh, mid-drink. Only their eyes moved, watching, waiting. I'll take my chances. Not Sarah sighed. Room 333. The Crawford Hotel, Union Station. The door will be there until sunrise. After that... It shrugged. Monday, David's life continues. Tuesday, David becomes a might have been. It stood, walked away. The crowd unfroze, continuing their loops as if nothing had happened. I ran, down the stairs, through Reno, past the art galleries and converted warehouses. My feet found their rhythm on familiar streets made strange. Behind me, I heard nothing, which was worse than hearing pursuit. Union Station loomed ahead. Beaux-Arts facade lit golden against the night. I'd proposed to Sarah here. No, Monday David had proposed here. I'd been in the waiting place, walking corridors of possibility. The Crawford Hotel. Luxury rooms above the station. I'd never been inside. The lobby was marble and shadow, no one at the desk. The elevator waited, doors open. 3rd floor, room 3D3. The hallway stretched longer than architecture allowed. My footsteps echoed wrong. Too many echoes, like multiple feet walking, or multiple Davids. Room 3D3, the door was already open. Inside, my apartment, but also not. The walls breathed. The coffee stain on the floor was fresh, spreading in impossible patterns. Sarah's boxes sat by the door, packed and ready. She stood by the window. The real Sarah. Crooked smile, no emojis, human teeth. "David?" She turned. "What are you doing here? I left hours ago." "Sarah." I crossed to her. "What day is it?" "Monday?" "David, you're scaring me." Monday. Still Monday. In this place, in this room that wasn't a room, it was still the day she left. "I'm sorry," I said. "About everything. Your mom, my work, the fighting." "David, I'm not asking you to stay. I'm sorry. And if you need to go, I understand. But I want you to know, the real you, that I love you." Crooked smile and all. She touched my face. Warm. Real. Human. "What's going on? You seem..." The room shuddered. Not Sarah's voice echoed from everywhere. "Choose. Monday, David's life, or Tuesday, David's consequences." Sarah's eyes widened. "What was that?" "Long story." I held her hands. "But I need you to trust me. Walk through that door." I pointed to the apartment door, still packed with her boxes. "Walk through, and we go back to Monday. You leave. We take a break. Maybe we work things out. Maybe we don't. But it's real. It's our choice. And if we don't, then I stay here in a life that's not mine, with someone who looks like you but isn't. Everything perfect, everything wrong." She looked at the door, at me, at the breathing walls and impossible room. "This is insane. Yeah, like actually insane. I know," she laughed. That beautiful, imperfect laugh. "My mom always said you were weird. She's not wrong." Sarah picked up a box. Okay, let's be weird together. Or apart, or whatever. But let's be real." We walked to the door. Behind us, the knot room began to collapse. Walls folding inward. Reality editing itself again. "Together or apart," I said. "I choose us. The real us. Problems and all." She smiled, crooked, perfect. "Even if I need space? Especially then." We stepped through. The coffee mug shattered against my kitchen floor at exactly 8:17 a.m. on a Monday morning. I was alone. Sarah's boxes were gone, her key on the counter. My phone buzzed, a text from her. "Made it to Mom's. I'll call you in a few days. We should talk." I smiled. We should talk. Not, "I love you." Not perfect. Not wrong. Just human. I cleaned up the coffee. Went to work. Lived my Tuesday David life in my Tuesday David world. Sometimes, late at night, I check room 333 at the Crawford Hotel. It's always booked. The reservation name is always the same. D. Monday. Sometimes my phone gets texts from unknown numbers. "You chose incorrectly." The selection stands. Monday, David thrives. I delete them. Sarah and I are talking. Therapy. Working through our issues like adults in the real world. It's hard. It's messy. It's human. Last week she stayed over. We made dinner. Watched The Office. She fell asleep on the couch and I covered her with a blanket. Normal. Mundane. Real. But sometimes I catch her reflection looking somewhere else. Sometimes the coffee stain on the kitchen floor seems fresh. Sometimes I count the teeth in her smile. And sometimes, at 3:33 a.m., I hear footsteps in the hallway. And I remember, some selections can be reversed, but some doors, once opened, never quite close, if you remember the way back. And, God help me, I do. Wait, do you hear that? Those footsteps. They sound familiar. Tell me, what day is it where you are? And more importantly, which version of you is listening to this? Check the comments. See if others remember their missing days. Because if I'm right, I wasn't the only one selected, and I won't be the last.